Okay, welcome to the book club. We are making our way through this book. We have finished chapter 8 now, and I'm wondering before I start on chapter 9, if anybody has anything you want to share, any reflections, questions, or anything from Woe is me, Babaji triggered my painful memory. That was about him triggering my samskara. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, anything like that before we move on to Babaji the saint made me faint? It can be very heavy to learn about samskara, as I know. Yes, Ladali.
Yes, what you explained last week about Babaji, when we are kind of jealous if someone else gets his attention. Yeah. I mean, it helps me a lot to understand my behavior, my own jealousy. And now I understand that it's my own little girl who didn't get attention from Daddy. Yeah. But that was just super efficient and super useful for me.
Good. Vilas is nodding his head too. It's hard to see it and it's hard to admit it, and that's why when I was saying it, I'm like, oh, it's like so. It can be very helpful if you're ready to hear it, but a lot of people aren't ready to hear it, and they're like, they don't. It's really. But if you've been struggling with it, and maybe you don't even realize it's jealousy, you just think I don't like that person or that person's irritating. But when you realize, like, oh, my little girl didn't get what she needed. Then you can think of it in a compassionate way, not to think, I'm a jealous person, I'm bad or something. It's more like she didn't get the love she needed from Daddy, and of course she's going to want that. And when she meets somebody who's so kind and so compassionate, so loving, of course she's not going to want anybody to interfere there, because that's something we've been waiting our whole life and probably many lifetimes for. So it's good that you can validate yourself and not feel bad about it and feel like, okay, I got it. Good job. Very good. Then you can see it, and then you feel in control because you can do something about it. You can be like, oh, it's my little inner child who needs a hug, or to be told that she's still loved and lovable no matter what. Yeah. Good job. Mohini, were you going to share something?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Vilas.
I just want to say that I've also observed that it's when the samskara storm is running, right? It can be very, also for me, it can be very, very tough, right? In this situation you described of he's not responding, and I could relate to that. For me it was more that, oh, now he's mad at me, or now he thinks I'm in a specific negative way. And And I really wonder if there's any practical advice you could give, or of how to get out of that when I'm in the situation of where I think that he must be really mad at me now and he must be criticizing me. What could be something that I can tell to myself to get out of that?
It's a good question, and it's a tricky one because it's very hard when you're triggered, especially by your guru, or by, even if Babaji's not your guru, with this person you hold in high esteem, and you're like, he must be mad at me, he must be even worse than that, he must be criticizing me, he must be, something very heavy, right? And it feels so painful. And so the trick is that all of us, most of us, I shouldn't say all, I don't know everybody, but a lot of people are hardwired to be analyzing everybody around them except themselves. So if you're having that thought, that means you're not thinking about yourself. You're analyzing him, and then when are you going to get the relief? When he's not mad at you. And then, I'm not saying he was, but when he's talking to you again and smiling, all of a sudden, then everything's happy in this world. And then he doesn't respond again, or he's smiling at somebody else. Then you feel like horrible, So what a way to live, So the thing is that we are hardwired to focus on Babaji and his smile at us or validation or attention to us, because we didn't get that as a kid. So we're trying to get that from him, and we have to be aware of that, and that's what I've been saying. But the trick is, when you realize you're doing that means you're not paying attention to yourself. You're paying attention to him. What if you could only feel full if he eats? Then you'd be like, did you eat lunch today, Babaji? Did you eat dinner today? Okay, I can feel full. That's a ridiculous way to live. So the trick is, you have to realize that you yourself are hungry, and it doesn't have to do. Why is it? He can be, why is it our job to like control how he feels also? So what? Let him be angry. We probably did something to upset him. Why is it that now I have to be all analyzing if he's angry or not? You know? So if he's angry, he's angry. If he's happy, he's happy. That's his choice, how he wants to feel. How does that relate to you? And if he's angry at you because you did something, then introspect and think, what did I do? Must have done something. I don't think Babaji walks around just being angry, just like that. But what we want to try to do is try to control him and make him feel happy with me. And there's lots of tricks that people do to try to do that, but he can see through all of that. You know, so the trick is try to improve yourself and realize, okay, he must be upset about something. I mean, in the 10 years I've known him, he's a pretty reasonable person. You know, so if he's upset, then that maybe there is something you did. But what we want to do is try to clarify and say, no, it's what she did. I'm good, right? I'm always good in your eyes, right? It's what she did. It's what he did. You know, it's not you. So instead, number one, we have to realize the problem's inside of me. I'm feeling triggered. So that means I need to learn how to acknowledge my feelings, cool myself down, talk to myself and say, okay, this is some very old wound. It's not Babaji, because if he is upset, first of all, he has a right to be, and I'm sure it's for a good reason. And second of all, you can't control his mind. You can't even control your own mind, you know? So the focus has to be on you. You, your feelings, and then managing them. Not analyzing him. Because then all of a sudden, because we didn't get it from our parents, and worse than that, most of us were emotionally neglected at the minimum. And sometimes physically abused, sexually abused. So because of that, we are not only hardwired to, pay attention, did Babaji flinch this way or that way? No, that means he's mad. No, that means he's happy. We're so hardwired looking for that, not only love, but if we upset him. Because if we upset him as a kid, if you upset dad, you could be getting a hit. You could be getting kicked out of the house. So you have to be hyper aware, of what he's thinking and feeling. Number one, to try to get your love and attention. And number two, to not get hurt when you're projecting all your samskaras. So if you're aware of that, what I would say is don't wait to get triggered again by him. I would be working on it daily. But when you're calm, when you're peaceful, every day make 5 minutes to say, okay, I have this side of myself that's wounded, probably 3 years old. It's called my inner child. And my inner child needs to be talked to every single day. And say, I know that you got ignored by your father or abused by your father. Whatever the thing is, it's your story, And then love your inner child and nurture and say, Babaji's a very nice, kind, loving, compassionate person. And I'm not going to let you, 3-year-old, drive the ship here and interpret how he's thinking and feeling. I'm your father and my job is to take care of you now. Or I'm your mother and my job is to take care of you and your feelings. Once you understand logically what's going on mechanically in the mind, then you have to work with it every day. Because what I'm saying now is not going to help anybody, actually. Sounds nice, but when you get triggered again, maybe tomorrow morning, same problem. So you have to work. It'd be like if you said, I keep showing up once a year for the marathon, but I never can run the 26 miles or whatever it is. I don't know why I can't run it. I'm like, well, you're probably showing up on the day of and you're just running it, but you're not preparing. You have to run every day for many, many months to prepare to run a marathon. So it's like that. A samskara is no joke when a samskara is triggered. So you need to prepare every day for when it's going to be triggered. Taking care of your inner child every day, at least once a day, What do you think?
That was very helpful, thank you. And now one thing in the beginning you said, I tripped. So can you help me understand? So I heard you say that if he's angry, if he's upset, so let him be.
Yeah.
Right? It is his right, and he is it for a reason, and he has the power over his mind to choose whether he's happy or upset. And now the question is for me that, but as someone who's trying to do service to him, my goal should be that he's happy. So if he's not happy, then, oh no, right? I made a mistake, and that sounds, that sounds bad, maybe frightening, or maybe, it goes to the root of my identity, right? So,
And what's your identity?
my identity that is linked to him.
And what's
right?
that identity?
As a disciple.
So the root of your identity as a disciple. So if you feel like you made a mistake, you said it goes to the root of your identity as a disciple.
No. So, okay, good point. So, of course, as a disciple, if I were perfect, then making a mistake would be a big problem. But of course, I'm not. But my objective is that he is happy, right? So, therefore, isn't it, and I think therefore it might be so, make me insecure when he's not.
Yeah, this is called fixing feelings. This is a codependent problem. Other people have the same problem too, but we want to try to fix his feelings. If he's angry because you made a mistake, I mean, he knows we're all sadhakas. He knows we're all in the process working through our issues. I don't think he's expecting anybody to be perfect. So he knows that. And if he's irritated by something, that means he doesn't have the right. I mean, just think of what you're wanting him to be like. It's called controlling. Oftentimes people don't realize that they're trying to control Babaji. Nobody just lets him be. Everybody has their own thing they're trying to make him be. And a lot of people want him to be happy with me, happy with me. Let him be irritated. He has long, hard days with a lot of people, right? And so maybe he might get irritated. I mean, I can't speak for him. I can't read his mind. I can't say his feelings. But if you're perceiving that he's irritated, okay. And if you made a mistake, then work on yourself. Instead what we do is we want to send him an email and tell him, oh, I'm so sorry, and make it, that's fine, you can send an email, but just think, I mean, how many emails he has to read in a day. And most people don't have compassion for that. They're continually trying to get his time, and just 5 minutes, and just, can you read this, and can you do that? And that's very draining for one person, And so, yes, okay, maybe you upset him, but what upsets him more is if you keep dragging it out and trying to make him prove that he's happy with you. So yeah, most of us are probably going to upset him at some point if we're not perfect in our seva. So then we work on ourselves. We introspect. That's why how many times have you heard him say introspect, work on yourself? So just say you're like, okay, I messed up. That probably upset him. Then improve. That's what he'd like to see. But usually what people do is, like I said, they either blame or they try to drag it out with him and make sure that he's okay with me. But then they do the same mistake again. If you're sincere, then you fix yourself and don't make that mistake again. The rest is like a whole lot of hot air. All these just words. You don't need to say anything if you change your behavior. And if you have a little empathy for him, Nobody will just let him be as he is, and that's what I'm saying is it's coming from an inner child who's like, Mommy, Daddy, don't be upset with me, instead of like, okay, he is how he is. Maybe he's tired today. Maybe he's sick. Maybe, who knows? He has so much going on in his life. But that's not for us to try to analyze or control. It's hard. It's difficult to focus on yourself and what you need, because if you think about it, most likely he's like, at least how I see it, he's always happy. He's blissful. That's his bhav, right? He's blissful. So probably not going to make him upset like you think. And the second of all, the best way, just think of what would be the most best possible way to make him happy, is you make yourself happy. Because if you're happy, guess what? You're going to be nice to everybody. You're going to be harmonious in your seva. You're going to be compassionate. You're going to be empathetic. That would just make him so happy to see. Whenever he tells us what he wants, it's not that much. He wants us to be empathetic, to be harmonious in our seva, to study Shastra, to do our japa. It's not that much that he's asking. So usually if he is seeming a little irritated, most likely it's because we were acting in a way that's selfish, unsupportive, competitive, aggressive, hateful, jealous. And then guess what? Whoever you disturb, they may not say it to you, but guess where they're going to go? To him. So But when we're seeing him through the eyes of a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, it's very selfish how we're seeing him. It's how can he serve us to take care of my wounded self. It's a heavy one. And I don't think most spiritual circles talk this openly about it, that's why I'm saying it. Because if it can help, if it can help us. So not all of us have to go through it as long as I did. That's why I wrote the book. What's that saying that Babaji always says? The smartest people learn from other people's mistakes. So you can learn from my mistakes. You don't have to do it yourself. Anything else? Kamala.
Yes, Haribol.
Haribol.
So basically, we go back to the same. We have to start from ourselves and see what is lacking in ourselves, and analyzing basically on daily basis why I feel like this, why I'm doing like this, why I did it, I could do it differently, why I cannot do it like that. All this type of long, list of questions that generally we say why he did like this, why he could not do that, why. So instead of this controlling type of thing, giving the power outside, just to take it back basically.
Yeah, and then when you start feeling better, the ideal is, then you start helping other people in the community. Because think of how much as the community is growing, it's all on him. And everybody's trying to go to him and get him to have a personal relationship instead of saying, wait a minute, I've been here 10 years, I've been here 20 years. Maybe I can help out some other people instead of trying to compete with them. Instead of trying to fight with them. Maybe I can help out people, and so we can show Babaji that we are embodying, understanding his teachings, and helping. Instead of trying to always, still the inner child driving to get his attention and get his love. Instead of overanalyzing him, we have to overanalyze ourselves and then improve ourselves and then start helping others, start coming together in a way where there's not the fighting, the competition, the jealousy, all that, Then he'll get, I think, a relief to see. But it starts with us analyzing us. He can trigger something in us. Most people trigger something or other in us, But then we have to take it within ourselves to work on it. Not bring it to him or the other person.
Yeah. Thank you. I was touched when in this little clip that recently came up in the device there. So when you say if you would be one thing that people could take from Vedic psychology, is just this point, not to point it out, but to point it in and try to change ourselves. This is basically
that would be a huge change.
Yeah.
And if you watch how many times you have the tendency to want to blame, it could be 100 times in a day. If you watch your mind, it's like, oh my God, there's always someone to blame for something, even the smallest thing, And then instead of being like, okay, how could I, even if it was the person who did, just say somebody did do something, but you can take the energy in and go, okay, that trigger, oh look, I didn't realize how angry I could get so quickly. Let me work on my anger. Because there's so many subtle ways that the mind, the mind is so tricky. There's so many subtle ways that we try to get other people to change. All the way up to Babaji. So many tricks. That could just be a book on its own. All the ways that we're not just staying with ourselves and working on ourselves. It comes out sideways, and we're good at it because we've been doing it our whole life. That's how we had to survive our childhood. That's the thing. To survive our childhood, we had to learn all these tricks. Because most kids, all kids, when you see them when they're first little and they're walking around, they're just starting to talk, they're straight. They're direct. They'll say something and you're like, oh my God, that's rude, but they're direct. They're not tricky. But the more difficult your parent is, the more you learn to lie, to cheat, to be duplicitous, to twist the story, to go around like that, because you can't be straight. Because what you learn from them is if you're direct, if you're straight, if you're honest, you get a smack. Or they tell you you're bad, they criticize you, and then you start watching them and you're like, oh, okay, mom and dad are lying. Whatever they're doing, you're learning, So by the time, you get older, you've been doing it for 20 or 30 or 40 years. So it's very, very hard to change it. And that's why it's so, Vedic psychology is not as popular as, some other things that would probably be more like feel good, like positive psychology. That's one that's really popular in the West. Positive psychology, let's talk about all positive things. But we're like looking at the garbage, basically. And that's very, very painful, and it takes a lot of courage to sit here every week and look at it, You guys are doing great. It's not an easy topic to see the underbelly of things. The relief comes when we see it and we start clearing it out. But right now we're like running up a mountain, And it's like, where's the top? Well, we're not there yet. You're just like, yeah. But like Ladali said, getting the knowledge sometimes can also be a relief. You're like, whew, okay, I see it. And that's when you get the breakthroughs. And then it makes you want to keep going, And this type of thing also, when you are with other people who are interested and like-minded and you're discussing, that also helps you feel not alone in this, It kind of normalizes the process and realize there's not something wrong with you. It's just the human mind, and we're all starting to see it. And we're kind of normalizing, like, oh, okay, I'm jealous, or that's a samskara, or that type of thing, So hopefully that's also helpful. Vilas.
So there's one question from one participant. He asks, when some samskaras are so deep and not leaving, especially leading one to break regulative principles related to illicit sex, what to do?
That's a big one. So sometimes I have to just answer in general because I don't know the person. They're like, one-on-one I could probably help you find out what the exact samskara is. But in general, if the samskara is a big one and you can't control it, then what I would say is, everybody's going to have their own answer, but for me, from because obviously Babaji is going to say something from what the guru would say, but from a psychologist point of view, I would say to see a psychologist. Work with a psychologist. They may not know the term samskara, but they're going to help you go into the depth and find out what that samskara is, even if it's not, it could be the childhood trauma, whatever that thing is, that's making you feel that you need to have illicit sex. That's not a small thing, So to think that you're just going to overcome it on your own. You can try. I do have clients who've tried, but by the time they come to me, it hasn't worked. So then we start getting into what the samskara was. For men that I've had who have some sort of similar problem like that, oftentimes it has to do with their relationship with the father. And the father's complete lack of acknowledgement of them. Or the father making them feel like they're just no good, completely no good at all, like they're just, nothing they can do is ever going to make them feel like they're somebody, But I'm not saying if your father treated you like that, then that means it's not so simple as like, then that means you're going to have illicit sex. But the ones who are moving in that direction or are in that direction, usually it's related to the father. But there's other things too, like if you've been sexually abused, oftentimes as an adult it comes out in some way like that. Just depends. That's why I'm saying I'd have to see the person. But my recommendation was at least go one time to a psychologist and get some sort of assessment of what they think the problem is. Then you can figure out what to do about it, But it's hard to figure your own mind out like that when you know it's a particular problem, what to do. Because it could be for many reasons, Just like in Ayurveda, if I have a headache, it could be because I'm just dehydrated. But the person next to me has a headache because they're low in, iron. And then somebody else has a headache because they got hit in the head, And someone else has a headache because they're having a hormonal problem. So with Vedic psychology, we always go to the root. And I'm not sure how to answer that because I don't know what the root is. But a good therapist can help at least identify what that is. Then you can decide what you want to do about it. Any other questions, reflections, feelings? Anything else? Ready? Okay, let's read. So now this is one of my most painful ones. Even though the last one was called Babaji Triggered My Painful Memory, this one is really a really hard one for me because the samskara is not fully resolved. Okay, Babaji the Saint Made Me Faint. Chapter 9. Fortunately, I had a chance to redeem myself after my emotional meltdown in France. That was last chapter, remember? We went to Germany after our France trip. It started off as a peaceful afternoon as Babaji and a few of us students strolled down the tree-lined, quiet streets in a picturesque spa town in Baden-Baden. After all the years of a packed, hectic travel schedule, Babaji's body was feeling the impact. 2 of his students kindly surprised him with some alternative medical treatments to revive his body. I also felt worn out from all the traveling, so this Germany visit was a welcome break. I was very much looking forward to relaxing with my German friends, while Babaji was... Sorry, I got distracted. While Babaji took his specialized rejuvenation treatments, I thought maybe we could sit outside in one of the lovely parks in this quaint little town while we were waiting for him. That's what was churning in my anxious mind as we sat in the clinic waiting for Babaji to be called in for his treatment. Don't get me wrong, there was nothing wrong with the clinic waiting room that should cause me to feel anxious. In fact, quite the contrary. It was very welcoming. The thick, dark blue oriental rug reminded me of my mother's comfortable living room on a cold winter day, and the decadent assortment of snacks and chocolates and teas to choose from made it feel even more like home. The brilliant white couch was so elegant. It looked like a refurbished antique. The white fabric with pink roses on it matched the dark rose-colored wallpaper behind the couch. For the perfect finishing touch, soft throw pillows adorned the seating area, promising to soothe and comfort. Babaji took a seat and let himself sink into the couch. He looked sleepy. I was relieved to see him looking so relaxed and comfortable on his day off from all the trains, planes, and automobiles that had made up so many of his waking hours over the past few weeks. At that time, I thought, it's amazing how calm Babaji is no matter the situation. He looks so serene and not bothered at all that he is about to go into the doctor's office and get injections. So you can see, Malati, remember that? Okay, so look, you can see the picture. Malati and Vedanta were the ones who organized all this for Babaji. And there's those 2 and me. So there he is, all relaxed. And that does that look like a nice doctor's office? Looks more like a spa, doesn't it? Yeah. Yes. Babaji relaxing on the couch at the doctor's office. I kept quiet, though, and I didn't share my thoughts. I didn't want to disturb his mood or my own. You see, I have a phobia of all things related to doctor's offices, including needles, injections, blood, stitches, and surgery. I already felt a little queasy just knowing we were in the waiting room of a doctor's clinic. Even though it looked nothing like a hospital, I still knew that behind the door, just down the hall, there were needles and injections and things related to blood. In anticipation of my phobia flaring up, I decided to inform Babaji. So on our climb up the very steep hill to the clinic, remember that, Malati? That really steep hill? Yeah. Okay. It's all part of my trauma samskara. Okay, so on the climb up the very steep hill to the clinic, breathless from trying to keep up with his speedy pace, I revealed to Babaji that I had a phobia of blood and needles. He asked me why, and I told him I didn't know why. I'd had this problem since I was a very small girl. He asked what had happened, and I shared my first memory when I was at nursery school, probably around the age of 3 or 4, and a little boy hit his head on the side of the table and he started bleeding. As soon as I saw the blood, I threw up and then I fainted. I explained that I felt nervous about going with Babaji to the doctor's appointment, and I asked if I could just wait outside in the fresh air at one of the beautiful parks nearby. So if any of you guys have any kind of phobia, you know how it is, something you're really anxious about, if there's any way you could get out of it, wouldn't you get out of it? I mean, I just felt like I was walking into the death trap, you know. I was like, wait a minute, like, I'm not going to the doctor, that was for him, so I'll just go wait at the park. There's a pretty park, you know, and I'm like, I'll just wait at the park and relax. Like, well, that seems very reasonable to me. I mean, I thought, why would I walk there and hang out in a place that's so anxiety-provoking for me, you know? Little did I know, he had a different plan. So, without any deliberation, he promptly told me that I could wait with his other students in the waiting room and that I would be fine. I was surprised at how quick his response was. Usually he wouldn't have minded me making such a request. I thought he was annoyed with me. See that, Vilas? Another samskara. I thought he was annoyed with me for even asking, so I did not press the issue. In the waiting room, I was silent, trying to keep my cool so Babaji and the other students wouldn't realize how nervous I was. Fortunately, after a few minutes, Babaji was called by the doctor. Thank God I was spared from his relentless questioning of my weak spots. Babaji calmly left the comfy couch and followed the doctor down the hall into the treatment room. I did my best to forget that I was in a doctor's waiting room, and also that my guru was being poked and prodded with needles in the room next door. Stirring my cup of sugary milky tea, watching the creamy light brown liquid swirl, I tried to distract my mind. I wasn't even talking to you in Vedanta. I was like, I was so stressed. They were like, I remember you guys were talking and being normal, and it was not social time for me. It was like total anxiety, through the roof. But I felt uneasy remembering past visits to the doctor that had gone badly, like the time when I had to be put in a wheelchair after having my blood drawn because I fainted in the elevator on the way back to work. Note to self, don't give blood on my lunch break. I felt myself starting to sweat, and I realized my anxiety was increasing. I tried to make small talk with my fellow students, which worked to an extent. They were engaging and very kind people, yet I still couldn't feel completely at ease. My anxious mind drove me to fidget. Sitting down felt impossible, so I used my nervous energy to get up and make another cup of sweet, creamy tea. As I was standing at the counter, stirring in a third spoon of sugar, the door opened. To my surprise, it was the doctor. In her loud, confident voice, she commanded, "Joshika, Babaji has asked to see you." I was like, what? Am I on a... This is like a nightmare. I said, what? My stomach lurched and I lost my breath. What? She must have got the wrong person. Why would Babaji want to see me? He knows I have a phobia of needles and blood. Is he crazy? I thought to myself, my mind racing. To the doctor, I could only muster up, now? Yes, he's asking to see you now, the doctor said firmly. Oh my God, I thought, what could he possibly want? Oh, I know, maybe he forgot something and he wants me to get it for him. I responded, do you know what he wants? There's no way I'm going in that room, No, he just said that I should come and get you. I forced a smile. Can you please ask him if he left something in the waiting room that I can give you to give to him? I have his bag here and I can give it to you, I cleverly said, to get out of going into the place of no return, the dungeon of the doctor's horror show office full of needles and other tools to inflict pain and draw blood. The doctor politely agreed to take Babaji's bag, which I gladly gave to her. She swiftly closed the waiting room door. I took a huge sigh of relief that she hadn't forced me to go with her. My anxiety did not abate, though. Just the thought of going into the doctor's office caused a cascade of sweat to pour down my back, and my stomach was doing flips. I tried deep breathing, but to no avail. I noticed some chocolates neatly arranged in a small crystal dish, and I began popping them in my mouth like pieces of popcorn as quickly as possible, hoping to tame my nerves. Just then, the waiting room door opened again. The doctor appeared, and in a very polite manner, she said, "Joshika, Babaji has asked you to come and see him now." Jesus Christ, I thought, he is relentless. He just won't take no for an answer, and I'm doomed. Without saying anything, I nodded and moved toward the doctor, my legs numb and wobbly. I followed her down the hall, the sound of her high-heeled shoes clickety-clicking guiding the way. She opened the door to her office, and to my absolute horror, Babaji was lying on what looked like an operation table. His left sleeve was rolled up to expose an IV needle in the vein of his forearm. He smiled at me and said, "Just relax, it's not that bad. Now it's time for you to get over your phobia. This is your exposure therapy. Try to look at the needle." Look at the picture. See him? He's smiling. Babaji smiling at me, doing my exposure therapy. With all of my might, I tried to keep my dizzy head from spinning out even more. I tried to anchor my feet on the ground, but I felt overwhelmed and like I was not in my body. Babaji's clear voice cut like a knife through my anxiety. He assured me, everything's fine. This is just an old memory, some samskara that's bothering you. Try to focus on me and look at the needle. Babaji was peacefully looking at the needle as he said, what is there? Nothing. You see, I'm fine. I'm not in pain. This needle doesn't even hurt. They are just giving me some vitamin injection, which is very good for my depleted body. There's nothing to worry about. By now I had broken into a cold sweat. My head was spinning faster. I focused on Babaji's instructions and tried to ignore my physical symptoms. The doctor reached over Babaji and pulled the shirt sleeve on his other arm. She compassionately turned to me and said, I have to take his blood now. Are you okay with that? Babaji smiled at me and said, come on, you can do it. I'm fine. There's no problem with the blood. Just watch and you'll see. Everything's okay. I was beyond words now, so I couldn't respond. I was frozen. I don't even think I nodded, and I don't think it would have mattered anyway, as the train had already left the station. Babaji was determined to help me get over this needle phobia, so he continued on with his plan. The doctor inserted the needle into Babaji's arm, and I instinctively covered my eyes. I couldn't look. Babaji coached me. You can look now, it's all over. Look, I'm fine. When I looked, I saw one bright red drop of blood on the white bed sheet. I lost it. The whole room started spinning. My hands started shaking, my legs too. I felt like I was going to vomit, and I started shivering. I couldn't get any words out. My vision started to narrow. The only thing I could do was swiftly exit the room. You know, when this phobia gets triggered, like everything turns black. You know, it's like I can't even see. It's very disorienting. And it's a whole body experience, you know. I'm dizzy and sweating, and I feel like I'm going to throw up and faint. It's like a very disorienting, and like I don't wish anybody to have this experience. It's not like anything else I could describe, you know. Unless you've fainted, right before you faint, it's that feeling, you know. I went for the only door I could see, which was a different door than the door that I came in. It turns out it was another doctor's office, which was empty, thank God. The feeling of nausea was coming over me in strong waves now. I was disoriented, my legs felt like rubber. I collapsed onto the examination table, and everything went completely dark. So I fainted, basically. When I regained consciousness, the doctor was there. She gave me a cup of apple juice, and she told me I would feel better if I drank it. With weak, trembling hands, I lifted the cup to my lips and drank the sweet juice. The doctor left to attend to Babaji, and I stayed on the bed trying to recover. For 30 minutes I lay there in a daze. So much for my relaxing day off, I thought. I should have just stayed in the park. Okay. When I finally resurfaced and saw Babaji relaxing in the waiting room, he was grinning. What happened? Did your samskara attack you? He joked. Yes, I freaked out when I saw the blood. I tried my best to follow your instructions, but I just lost it, I said, feeling embarrassed. Babaji said, don't worry about it. Samskaras are very strong and overpowering, especially when they involve phobias. You did a good job even just looking at the needle. You'll get better if you keep exposing yourself to needles and blood by using your awareness. What do you mean by awareness, Babaji? You have to be aware of your emotions and not let your phobia overtake you. Find some videos of people getting injections, maybe on YouTube, and then watch them over and over again. Observe your emotions rise and intensify. Continue to watch the video until you're able to feel calm and peaceful when you see an injection or blood, Babaji advised. Okay, thank you, Babaji. I will work on it, I agreed. He added, you can also get a syringe and look at it and hold it so you can get comfortable with it. That way you won't feel so fearful when you see one next time. A few weeks later, after I had recovered from the bloody incident at the doctor's office, I asked Babaji, why do I get so emotional when I see a needle or blood? You were so calm, but I freaked out. What did you mean when you said that my samskara attacked me? Babaji graciously explained, you have had some past traumatic experiences with blood and needles. These experiences were so upsetting to you that you could not digest them at the time they occurred. It may not even be from this life. Perhaps in one of your past lives, something very bloody happened. Maybe you were in some war or other intense violence, or maybe you saw someone else get killed in a bloody massacre. We don't know. But if you don't have any experience of something like this from your childhood, then it must be coming from a past life. So how does watching a video of blood or injections help me get over my phobia? I don't get it. Wouldn't that just re-traumatize me? I mean, I have heard of exposure therapy, but that is a modern day concept, one that certainly didn't work for me in the doctor's office in Germany, I said doubtfully. Babaji calmly countered, you can't see it, but in your mind you have tons of little programs that we call samskaras or memory files. Depending on the current situation, it will trigger different memory files. In your case, you have a very emotionally loaded memory file for blood and injections. So when you saw the needle in my arm, and then the drop of blood, you became so emotionally overwhelmed that you fainted. By watching videos of blood and needles, you will eventually desensitize yourself. But how does it actually work, Babaji? I wondered out loud. When you watch the videos with awareness, you are using your logical mind to manage your emotional mind. So that's the key. Babaji elaborated, you have to be aware that nothing is happening to you. You're just watching something on the screen. So why should you be scared of anything? Obviously, it is your samskara that is forcing you to react emotionally. So you have to take control of your emotions and not be overpowered by the samskara. Furthermore, millions of people get injected every day. It is no big deal. Tell yourself that you're okay. Things are just fine. When you start feeling the anxiety coming on, just tell yourself there's no need for anxiety. Remind yourself that the anxiety is coming from an old memory file. There's nothing to be anxious of right now in this moment. You have the choice to not allow the old memory to control you anymore. Babaji continued, do you want to be calm or anxious? Do you want to be in control of yourself or be controlled by some phobic samskara? It's up to you. With your awareness, you can consciously decide to remain calm. Each time you're able to manage your mind to be calm, when you see blood or needles, you strengthen the new program, samskara, of calm emotions related to blood or needles. And eventually, when you see blood or needles, you'll be calm and collected. The old phobic program that causes you to get anxious and faint will slowly weaken and eventually fade away and become deactivated. Over the next few years, I took Babaji's advice. Slowly but surely, a new program was created. I can't say the old phobic memory file is completely deactivated yet. I still don't like to look at blood or needles, but for the most part, at least, my reaction is very mild compared to what it used to be. I don't have such an extreme reaction as freaking out or fainting when I have to get an injection. Just last year, when I had to go to the dentist, I responded in a calm and confident manner. No fainting, no sweating, or nervous stomach. I felt peaceful when the dentist gave the injection and remembered Babaji's smiling face when he had the IV in his arm in Germany. I heard his reassuring voice say, just relax. Everything is fine. You're going to be okay. And I relaxed. Babaji's grace allowed me to come out of the most fearful, traumatic samskara of my life. Without Babaji, I would have never had the courage to face it. Out of compassion, he has helped me to look at what was the most terrifying for me. I never believed it was possible to overcome it, but now I do. And my reflection is that, like every interaction I've had with Babaji, I wonder what I could have done differently and better. I wonder what it would have been like if instead of hiding and trying to avoid dealing with my samskara, I'd had the courage to deal with it head on. Perhaps when I told Babaji that I was scared of blood and needles, I could have asked him to help me to transcend it instead of asking him if I could go to the park to avoid my phobia. Maybe if I had trusted that Babaji could help me, I would have not only asked him, but when he called me to come see him in the doctor's office, I would have eagerly gone, knowing he was trying to help me, not hurt me. I wonder how much more quickly I could have got out of my troubling samskaras if I had just trusted my Guru's way of guiding me and believed in my heart that everything he's doing is for my own good. So my lesson learned was be brave and face my problems head on. Take help from my Guru instead of avoiding it. Trust that my Guru is always looking out for my best interest, and his instructions and actions are always out of compassion to uplift me. Anybody want to share anything? What you think, what you feel, what you could relate to?
Two things. One is the bravery and the faith that you put in Babaji's word and try your really best to follow, which is, I think, an important ingredient to face our own samskaras. And second, also, I'm looks like that alone we cannot get out of it. So we really need a person who is loving, caring, like in this case, like Babaji, or what? Because we don't have the capacity to, when we are so much triggered and the emotions are so strong, we cannot get into in our body and control it. This is what I have observed.
Yes, very much. We cannot get out of it alone. You know, because I mean, you see, my instinct was I don't want to go into the building, let alone see him, even just waiting in the waiting room, you know. But so he saw that was like too much of an opportunity to miss. Like he could not just be like, go to the park. I mean, he was like, no, you know. But I still didn't realize at that time what a important thing and memory that was for me that he created. You know, a new samskara to help me get out of that.
And it's also very touchy how Babaji is taking care. Don't worry, I am okay, ensuring and giving, like basically shelter. And
even when he was the one who was sick.
Yeah, exactly. So he was giving and giving.
Giving.
Yeah, it's really very sweet, very amazing. Thank you. Nice.
And thank you for, you also helped me a lot personally to get out of my needle samskara.
We have some stories
We have some stories together in Vrindavan. Yes. Nyayantree.
I was very amazed to see that how much Babaji wanted to help you, and he was trying to poke you and tell you, and that it shows me that how the loving father really helps the child to face the difficulties in life. And I think the way you have put the comforting words to you, Babaji was saying, I think that I hope that it can help me for you when I am triggered. Maybe these words that it's all right, it's fine. These words are very comforting, and I think maybe when we are triggered, we can look back to it and just have this thing that this is just a samskara, and
it gives you some distance from when you think of how he sees it, you know?
And that logical thinking part was also very, I found it very helpful. Thank you for sharing this way.
Thank you. Can you see how I didn't, even when he was trying so hard to help, I mean, I still fainted because I didn't really actually want to take his help at that point. I didn't really trust him, you know? It takes a long time to trust somebody, especially if you have a parent who betrayed your trust, right? So even though now, looking back and being, wow, that's so nice, you know, but in the moment, I think if I trusted him and I eagerly just said, yes, he's right 100% and I trust him, I wouldn't have said on the walk up, oh, I have this phobia, can I not go to the park? You know, I would have said, I have the phobia, you know, how can we, you know, deal with it, you know? And then he would have said, okay, try this. Or I would have been more eager, and then I think maybe I wouldn't have fainted, but I was so triggered by my samskara and triggered with how I can basically avoid it, you know? And then, I mean, I only actually went along with what he said when, I mean, how many times did I try to say no on the walk up? You know, in 2 or 3 times when the nurse came out. I tried, you know, so the only reason I finally did it was because I didn't know how to get out of it, basically. But I was trying everything I could to get out of it, and that was what my reflection was. Like, imagine if I had the attitude that I trust him 100% and his words, and I know that he can help me get out of it, then I don't even think I would have fainted. I think I would have been like, okay, what can we do? And I wouldn't have been so anxious. You know? But this samskara is also very, very deep because I don't have any childhood memory, so it's coming from, he said, a past life. The first time I ever had something happen in this life was with that little boy when he fell and cut his head, but I'd had the same response that I had as an adult, fainting and throwing up and everything, so that's why it's hard to work with something where you can't, you know, get my finger on what it was.
Transgenerational traumata. So the methods I'm doing is going to these traumata from past lives. Can be from past life, can be also from ancestors which you still have in your energy field, basically, and they can trouble and they need to be resolved. So this is a wonderful that this exposure therapy which Babaji did. This is a different approach.
Yeah. Wonderful. Anything else?
I can relate very much with this needle trauma.
You can relate to?
Yeah, I can relate very much, and I had this too. And I was like unable to even give blood. And once it's life-threatening for me too, because once I got poisoning, and I ate very poisonous fruits outside, and when I came home, I was like really vomiting all the time and shaking and sweating, and then I went to the hospital, and then they told me like, oh, it's really dangerous, we have to check your liver for the whole night and this, and you need an infusion for not getting dehydrated, and I refused that, and I even refused them to give blood, and I told them they should check if it is dangerous or not, and then I refused everything. And even on the next day, I was like so afraid that they would again take blood of me, and then I just ran away from the hospital.
That's how I am too. I mean, the only thing about living here is that I've gotten food poisoning a couple times a year here, and I cannot stop. I mean, the first time I think I had to be hospitalized for 3 days and 2 nights with the IV drip. You stayed with me the whole time, Kamala did. And now it happens a couple times a year, and the only way to stop it is the IV drip, because I can't hold even water down, and I get so dehydrated, I'm dizzy, I'm falling over. So I've learned to, get some more exposure therapy and just accept it. But it's a very strong phobia.
Yeah, I'm so happy I don't get that, and I have to take infusion. Last time when I was here, Malati told me, then the Dr. Gupta will come and give you infusion, and was like, I have to do everything to not get that.
That infusion? We can relate. We got the needle phobia.
But could I overcome it?
Yeah.
I just remember your snake phobia. So I would be interested, because Babaji also cured that. And that was also exposure, right? It was also... Yeah. So how did you, if you compare these two experiences, what would you say how you responded to it? And
The snake? I didn't really have a phobia, it's just I never even saw one before. I don't have any past experience, and all of a sudden he's holding some cobra around his neck or something. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know how many people have a natural instinct to like snakes and want to snuggle up. My natural instinct is like, ooh, but it wasn't like a phobia, like I'm going to faint, I'm anxious. I was just like gross, like I'm from like, I don't know, maybe in Germany, New Hampshire where I'm from, we don't have snakes. It's like, I mean, at least I never saw one. It's very like simple. I mean, with bears, but I wouldn't want to snuggle a bear either.
But it was very difficult for you to put it around.
Yeah, because I don't.
Everybody was wearing it around. It was not so. But so there was definitely a strong reaction. But I guess it was not as strong as a needle.
But at that point, I think it was the same idea that he knew that I didn't want a snake around my neck. So he was like, "Come over here," and I'm like,
"You were the first one,
because he knows.
put it."
So it was the same idea, is that he put me in a situation where I have to trust him and do something that, The thing is that also he knew, from the beginning of our relationship, he knew that he was training me to be a psychologist and to be a Vedic psychologist. And anything he saw in me like that, he was trying to get it out. I'm just saying that because I don't want anyone to think that he's going to start randomly doing that to you. I think he was really, and he told me, because I'm like, why are you doing all this? And he said, because how can you be a Vedic psychologist if you're having all this stuff inside you? So if I see it, I'm going to rip it out. So he was, purposely, anything he saw that I needed to, he would just put me in the hot seat and get it out. That's also part of it. But no, so it was the same idea, is constantly like challenging me and putting me in situations where I had to choose to trust my ahankara and my own samskaras or trust him. And that was a very hard process. But it was the same idea that I didn't want to do it. And I'm like, okay. It's not that after that experience, I'm like, great, I want a snake around my neck. I'm like, I did it, but...
I remember in that occasion I was also there, And I tried to hide as much as possible because I was terrified that if maybe he's calling me, I will not be able to do that.
But you did it. I remember you did it.
No,
Babaji did it. You get away. Yeah.
I hide behind a tree or something, looking like.
I didn't catch on to his game yet. Actually, that was only I forgot. I think the Germany thing happened after that, or before. It was around the same time. It was around that year, the same year. But I hadn't caught on to the fact of what he was doing because I asked him later on, "Why are you doing this?" And then he explained his method to his madness. But But I actually bought a needle. I bought a needle, and I had it, and I was like looking at it and touching it, and then I did do what he said. I was at home, in the U.S. for a couple months, and I was watching videos of people getting injections and people getting cut and surgery and blood. I was trying my best to. I mean, I only could do it for 30 seconds, and I was like, oh my God, So I wrote to him and I said, okay, I could do it 30 seconds. He said, just keep doing it and try to do it for longer and use your buddhi, use your awareness to kind of like calm yourself down, and if you can't, then stop. Then do it the next day a little longer. So keep exposing yourself, So I did all of that,
So this basically is showing showing the path to get out of the fear or the deep samskara that we can face by exposing voluntarily ourselves to whatever the problem is. But this thing that little by little, more and more and longer. So
the main thing is you have to. Because if you expose yourself but you don't have a strategy or a plan, you're just going to trigger yourself again.
Yeah.
So it's exposing with awareness and probably with a guide. Somebody you're going to be checking in with, and who's, and that way you're not just on because if you're just exposing, you can re-injure yourself. Yeah. So it is exposing, it is little by little, but it's like using your buddhi to take care of your inner child, to check in with yourself. How are you feeling before you do it? How are you feeling after? To have a guide who's also helping you, who knows how to do it, so you're not like going deeper and then you're like overwhelmed or making it worse, Because a guide will help you decide how to do it specifically for you.
Thank you.
I think that's all. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for participating. Haribo.